Today my audience is my mom and my dog. There are over 5 billion cell phones in use around the world today. Did you ever wonder how it all began? I am doing my speech on Alexander Graham Bell. He was an engineer, a scientist, and an inventor. He invented many things and had a strong desire to figure out how things worked. He had many ideas for new ways of doing everyday tasks. His most famous and successful invention was the telephone. His influence in the world of telecommunications paved the way for our fast-paced technology being used today. Alexander was born in 1847 in Edinburgh, Scotland. Both his mother and his wife were deaf. This had a great impact on his work with speech and sound. He began experimenting with hearing devices as a way to open communications between hearing and deaf people. Alexander had average grades in school. His favorite subject was science, especially biology. But at the age of 15, he left school to go live with his grandfather in London. His grandfather taught him how to give speeches and the importance of speaking clearly in order to teach others. Wanting to improve his life for his deaf mother, he continued to seek ways to help her communicate and be involved in conversations with others. Alexander's first invention was a type of realistic mechanical head that he could make speak. He would force air through a windpipe and move the lips to create spoken words. He even experimented on the family dog, moving its lips and touching its vocal cords to make sounds like words. This was the beginning of his work with the transmission of sounds. At the age of 23, his family moved to Canada for health reasons. He continued his studies of the human voice. All these experiences allowed him to get a job in Boston. He taught at a school for the deaf. One of his most famous students was a very young, blind, and deaf girl named Helen Keller. In the years that followed, Alexander continued to experiment with sound waves, electrical wires, and the phonograph. He worked hard to be able to transmit sound waves through electrical wires. His hard work paid off, and in 1876, he was able to get a patent of his invention, which was the first telephone. His telephone was a success. The first message sent over the phone lines was to his assistant. It was, "Mr. Watson, come here, I want to see you." Alexander continued to work to improve his invention, and in 1877, the Bell Telephone Company was created. His influence is still felt around the world today, and in innovations that include metal detectors, hydrofoils, aeronautics, and in the study of eugenics. Over his lifetime, he continued to learn and received many awards and honors. His legacy to society is that he paved the way for present-day technology. He also helped break down language barriers between deaf and hearing people. He was one of the greatest pioneers in the field of telecommunications that the world has ever seen. There are many interesting facts about Alexander Graham Bell. Did you know that even though he invented the telephone, he saw it as a distraction and did not allow one to be used in his study? Another is that he was born without a middle name. His father gave him one, which was Graham, when he was 11 years old. At his funeral, at the end of the service, every phone in North America was silenced in honor of his life and legacy. I chose to do my speech on Alexander Graham Bell because I'm always on my phone. I don't think many people could imagine life without it, but also because of a more impersonal part of his story that touches my own family. It turns out that my great-great-grandfather, John Briggs, worked as a young apprentice with Alexander Graham Bell and Mr. Watson in his Nashville workshop. In 1887, at the age of 20, my great-great-grandfather was sent by Mr. Bell to install the very first telephone switchboard in Canada. He learned his lifelong trade and gave 50 years of service to the telephone industry started by Alexander Graham Bell. Thanks to people like him, and that's how we all have gone from wired to wireless phones. Thanks.